at that time, 30 years ago, I used to own my own tree maintenance business. And what happened, I was looking for a retirement plan, and everybody I went to, you had to have a whole lot of money to get one started. And then I ran across Primerica, where you could start a retirement plan for $25 per month per employee, where basically you say $1 a day, right? But then when I was doing that, the individual that set it up asked me one question. He said, "Do you have a current written financial program?" And I said, "Well, yeah, between tree business, I use this one. No. Do you have a program is in writing?" And I go, "Well, no." And he said, "Do you want one?" And I said, "Oh God, what's this going to cost?" Right? He said it's complimentary. But when I did it, I realized how that we were doing pretty much everything wrong. You know what I mean? And the reason was, when I went to get help, my thing is that I'm an expert in the tree side of it, but I don't know anything about how money works. Worst thing I probably could have said. But what happens when I did it, I was so impressed that all I did was I just shared it with my friends. They didn't know anything about Primerica, didn't know anything about the business. But I found out that everybody I knew, we were all doing the wrong things, because we never got a financial education on how money worked. And then what happened, it was so bad, I thought to myself, well, I could either be part of the problem or part of the solution. And then I fell in love with helping people. And then, 30 years later, here I am.
Yeah, no,
doing this game. It's my passion now. It's just what I love to do. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we never learned in elementary school or high school or college.
And I have that fight with colleges and high schools, because I said, you have a course called Algebra, right? And I said to, let me ask you one question. How many people, I know you probably do, Joanne, because you're an accountant, but how many people use algebra when they get out of high school or college? Yeah. Probably hardly anybody, true? I said, you ought to throw that course out, and you ought to put a course in there called How Money Works. Because guess what? We all use money, right? But nobody's really ever taught how it works. And that's the basis where you start. Correct.
Absolutely. I would say I slightly disagree with you. I think that the basic algebra you do have to use, and I'm going to tell you why. So one of the things that I coach people on are sales, right? So I actually have to work backwards. So if I know that I want to make, or if I want to sell 100 tickets to something, right? That costs a certain amount of money, I need to know how many phone calls, and I'm talking about picked up phone calls, people who actually I talk to. How many phone calls do I need to make in order to sell 100 tickets, knowing that 2% of people actually buy the first time you call? So the answer is 5,000. So sometimes algebra, maybe
let me ask you this. Yeah. Is that a math question or is that an algebra question?
That actually, it's both. It's both, because 2% of what? 2% of what equals 100 tickets sold. So it's actually both. But the funny thing about it is the fact that, I always start with the goal in mind and work myself way backwards. So that's why algebra has always been good for me.
that's exactly how financial planning works. Exactly. You got
it. Awesome. So then tell me now, David, what are the benefits of using a financial coach? And is there something that can work for our audience?
Right. Well, let's just look at where this kind of country is to begin with, right? Actually, the government did a study, and most people want to retire, just say, when they looked at this study, want to retire when they're age 65, right? And here's what they found out. 1% of people that are going to retire are going to be wealthy. That means they have a net worth of 5 million or more. 4% are going to be financially independent. What does that mean? That means they saved enough money that makes them money so they don't have to work. But below that, 41% of people haven't saved enough money, so they're going to have to continue to work, because retirement is not an age, it's an income stream. And 54% of this country is going to be what I call broke, depending on the government, financial assistance, family members, or whatever. And the reason why that is because guess what? 1, they don't have a plan. 2, they don't have an education. on how money works, right? And then they don't have a financial coach, somebody to direct them. And then they don't have ownership, meaning that their money's in the wrong places, for a lot of different reasons. But that's some of it, you know what I mean? But the key is people need somebody. Unfortunately, it's not done in financial service like it used to be, but they need somebody that can really listen to them and find their needs. Because today, what happens if you make a mistake, if you make a financial mistake, it's going to cost you dearly. Okay. And what I mean by that, today, like if you invest money, if you go back and you look at the market and you look at the S&P over the last 20 years, the S&P has done 9.5%, but yet the average investor has made 3.6%. So what that means is, if you go back to something called the rule of 72, it's just an old banking principle that teaches how compound interest work, meaning that if you had an advisor, somebody to help you, then your money doubles every 7.6 years. If you try to do it yourself, you know what I mean, it's every 20 years. Well, that's a big difference. Why people need what I call a current written financial plan, or GPS, so they know where they are and where they're going to go. And everybody that has money, anybody that uses money, really needs one. Right.
Absolutely. Well, what's the process of developing a financial plan?
What's the cost?
What's the process? What's the process?
Oh, the process. I'm sorry. Yeah, you got it right. Well, the process is, first, you need to have somebody sit with you, and I call it an exploratory meeting, where you're listening and you find out what are the concerns of that particular client. Okay. So you're really building an advisor-client relationship, right? That's so important. If you can't trust a person or you don't feel comfortable, you don't want to get involved. But number two, once that's done, the next step is step two, is you got it, what we call is a questioning period, where we're gathering data from the client. We're finding out through questions really what the client wants and needs, and then we're putting that down on paper. So we're putting together a current written financial program that looks at everything from insurance through taxes, through debt, all the way up through saving for retirement. So they have a complete financial GPS of where they are and where they want to go. So that's why that's so important. From that.
Wow, that's fantastic. Earlier in the year, it was in June, the Lehigh Valley Women's Council, I happen to be a board member, Women's Business Council. We had a panel in our summit, and it was a financial panel. And one of the audience members had asked, I was also on the panel, had asked us a question, and maybe you can help answer that for her. And she wanted to know, how does she know how much money she needs to save before retirement? Is there a good answer for her, or something that she could use?
No, absolutely. There's a great answer for that. So what you have to do, one, you have to look at how much income will she need when she retires. To give you an example, here's a great example of that. Here they were making $56,400 gross a year, right? They wanted to live on 80% of that when they retire. So that means they'd have to pull out $45,120 from someplace. Now, these people are 33. They want to retire when they're 65, okay? So that means they have 32 years to save the money. Now, here's what most people forget. They forget to add something called inflation. What's inflation? We all heard about that, right? Things cost more over time.
Right.
So that means when she would go, just say that's what she was making, and when she goes to retire now, based on your financial independence number, that means the amount of money that she's going to need to accumulate would be $1,936,000 she'd have to accumulate. Why? Because what she can buy today for $45,120, 32 years from now, the same basket of goods and services is now going to cost $158,300. Okay. So you got to know what that financial independence number is. Just like you were talking about before, you got to work backwards, right?
Yeah.
So, and here's what happens. Well, if you go and just say that, going back to that rule of 72, why you need an advisor, if you only get 3% on your money, that means you got to put $3,043 away a month to get there. Well, that, guess what? That knocks out 99.9% of people right away. But if you understand how money works and you have an investment philosophy and you stick with that, and just say that you had a potential to get 12%, instead of $3,000 a month, now you'd have to put $435 away per month. Okay. So you got, just like you were talking before, you got to find out what's the target. What am I going to need? How much money am I going to need when I retire? And then you're going to work backwards, because once you retire, you still got to give yourself a cost of living adjustment each year in retirement just to keep up. That's where most people have the shortfall. They never plan that things are going to cost more in their future than they did when they were planning. Correct.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I was a kid, a Snickers bar, I think, cost 35 cents. now you get to CVS and it's almost $2. Like, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you look at everything. Look at when you buy your first home and then what it is today, right?
Yeah.
Or when you bought or just when you bought your last car, you know what I mean? Just say you bought it 5 years ago, you look what if you got the same, now I get, there's always some upgrades, but if you got the same car, that's inflation, you know what I mean? And if you're not planning for that, it'll derail you, from your retirement planning. Correct.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there, I know of them, who are not 35 when they finally kind of dig in and commit to saving some money for retirement. Right. What do you say to a person who, let's say, is 60 years old? If we're talking about retiring in 65, right. And you've never saved, or you've spent all your savings over time with all of the different things that have happened in life. When life happens, what do you do?
Right. Well, I always tell people it's never too late to start. Okay. And the reason why is because look what's happening right now. If you look at the average lifespan, okay, of a person, once, just say you retire at 65, there's a good chance that you're going to need money 25, 30 years out, yeah. You know what I mean, for your whole life. Like my mother's in a nursing home right now, and I can't believe the amount of people that are over age 100. And it's actually the fastest growing population out there. People living to 100, and you think, well, that'll never happen to me. You know what I mean? It's like my mother. She never thought she'd be 93. You know what I mean? Yeah. But they plan. So it's never too late to start. But that's why you need a plan, because you got to change the way you think. You got to change your habits on saving money. You know what I mean? But so that's why. And again, it all goes back to one thing. That's why it's so important to have a plan. Usually when somebody says, well, I never did that. I'm not in any kind of great condition. Well, they've already told you basically, well, I never had a plan. And I always tell people, you got to remember, you can't go back. It's no sense in trying to, well, I should have, I could have, would have. That time's gone. But you can plan and you can adjust for the future. And that's what you have to look forward to. Correct. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So tell me, because there's so much noise out there in the world, and there's so many competing types of financial institutions, as you already know. Now, I know you do Primerica. That is who you guys are. Yeah. What makes it unique from other financial services?
Well, the nice thing about Primerica, the neat thing about what we do, one, I think we're really the company, let me go back to the company. The company was built to serve middle America, kind of the forgotten class, right? So the company's always looked at, hey, first of all, you got to build a relationship with the client. And that means you really got to listen to what the client wants and needs, okay? Right. We don't come in, the first thing we do is provide an education, get to know the client, right? The second thing is we don't have a quota system. So when we come in, it's not our objective to say, hey, this is what you need. We want to listen. We want to get things down on a plan to find out exactly where you are, where you want to go. If they have things that are good, you keep them. If they have things that are kind of like out of whack, they did the best they could with the information they had. The nice thing about Primerica, because we're a supermarket of financial services and we deal with so many companies, we have a lot of information a lot of other companies don't have because we're not proprietary. We can use a lot of different services for there. You know what I mean? And the big thing is, after we do the plan, that's the key. That's really where the service starts. Okay, that's where the plan starts, because people need an ongoing relationship with that advisor so that they feel. I mean, what happens is, be honest with you, really become part of their family in a way.
Right.
In fact, I just had one. They kind of show you how it goes. Is unfortunately, I had a client that just passed away, and anyway, I was calling her up because she didn't take a requirement minimum distribution. So her son calls me back and says, "Hey, my mother's in the hospital and on life support, and she said she can still kind of understand who you are." And I said, "You mind? It would be okay because you've been a client for 20 years. Is it okay if I came in and saw her?" Well, I mean, I was kind of unprepared for that experience going into a hospital room where she's hooked up to all these monitors and everything, from there. But I had a chance to, be with her and pray with her. And then unfortunately she passed away.
Mhm.
And because we had a proper plan set up, and we had a strategy that we could transfer the money over to the son. It was a very simple transition,
Right.
and now her son is a benefactor of how she planned, and the estate that she was able to build up over those 20 years that she would have probably never had it if she would have been on her own and doing what she was doing when I met her. They would have never had anywhere near the network she has today. Right.
Gotcha. So basically it's choices, it sounds like.
Well, that's why you have to have a plan, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to know, the people need to know where they want to go. And then you have to have a plan that's flexible, because life's not a one-liner plan. Things are going to change over time. And you need to be with that, have somebody that loves what they do, is passionate about what they do, to give people the right tools, the right information, and can make those carburetor adjustments along the way, so they do feel secure.
Awesome. Now, this is going to be a question for you. I'm sure it's probably a question all the time, and it's my question too. How do you get paid?
Great question. Here's the best way I can describe it. We're like a supermarket of financial services, right?
Yeah.
Well, just say when you go into a supermarket, right? You don't buy everything, right? You buy what you need, you put it in your cart, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to the checkout, right? And I'll just pick a product, and I don't know why. Just say it's a can of corn. Well, when we go to the checkout, they scan that, right? So the fee for service is built into the product, right? So with Primerica, and the fact that we use so many different companies, what we do is we only fee that we charge. We don't charge any for the plan. The fee that we charge is whatever product or service that they need. That fee is built into that product. So when we do the financial plan, inside the financial plan, if we're recommending a product, we go over whatever that fee schedule inside there looks like, so they know what they're paying.
Got it.
That makes sense?
That makes perfect sense. So now tell me what a fiduciary is.
Okay. Well, let me first of all, let me start off with let me give you the definition of what a fiduciary is. It's a fiduciary is a person who holds a legal or ethical relationship of trust. That means they prioritize the client's interest over theirs.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? Now, and I don't know, all of a sudden lately, the reason I'm glad you brought that up is because that comes up now in every discussion, because there's a company that advertises on TV that talks about a fiduciary responsibility.
Yes.
Now, when I got into this business 30 years ago, you never even heard of that word, right? It was just that was the practice that we were in, doing what was right for the client first.
Right.
You know what I mean? But now, for the fact that unfortunately, a lot of companies, when they have a quota system and they're trying to produce so much product, you know what I mean? There's kind of been a gray area in there a little bit. So now is from a marketing tool, that's when they ask people, are you fiduciary? Yes, we are a fiduciary. Fiduciary in our business means really that you have to hold what they call a Series 65 license. Because we're in a regulated industry, there's a license that confirms that we're a fiduciary. But even when we didn't have that at that time, they didn't even have that license. That was how we always treated people, because our business is friends helping friends, business associates have business associates. And so that's how we developed a long-term business that was thriving, because we always took care of the client first.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
So then let me ask you, and you may have already kind of alluded to it in this discussion, but what is your investment philosophy?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. The best, my investment philosophy is what's right for the client. Okay, now remember, we talked about what's your financial independence number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, to find out what return, the potential return that you can get, right? Now, what you have to do is you have to build a philosophy for the client that the client will stay with long term, so that they know that philosophy has the potential to provide that return. So when we build that philosophy, we're looking at how can we give them the potential for the best return that they can get with the least amount of risk. Now, the key is, what does risk mean? Everybody has a definition of risk. Risk is basically how much time you have to let that money work, right? So if you say, well, I want to invest the money, but I only have a 5-year window before I'm going to start using it, that's a completely different philosophy. Then you say, well, I got 30 years to let it go, right? So the philosophy has to be built in to the amount of time that they have till they're going to utilize that money. But the client has to understand, what does that philosophy really mean? Because there's always going to be ups and downs, in any investment. And you have to have a philosophy that you're going to stick with in good and bad times.
Right. Well, that was some great information for sure. I want to definitely let our audience know how to find out more. And I know that there's more questions out there. So how do they get in contact with you, David?
Well, there's two ways they can do it. One, I can give you my direct phone number. It's 484-663-0172, or you can email me in Primerica. That's Primerica. My last name is Rabenold, Rabenold @gmail.com. Those are the two best ways to reach me. Yeah.
Awesome. And we'll definitely have your contact information in the post. One last question from me, because I never really quite understood Primerica, and I want to find out from you. How would someone, if they wanted to become something like how you guys are, where you're with Primerica, how do they, apply to have the work that you have, or career in Primerica that you have?
Very good question. What I've done is, if you're interested, I have actually 2 videos, right? And they're both about 17 minutes. And then what that does is they can listen. There's nothing sales about it. It's just to get people to think about either a career or about having a financial plan. And then they can listen to that. And then at the end, there's like 1 of 3 pathways. If they're interested, then the next thing is we get with them and do what I call a personal interview, find out where they like to go, explain what we do, and then we have a pathway to success a plan of what they need to do based on where they are and where they want to go in a career, even if it's part-time or full-time.
Absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. Because I have to tell you that, I know the financial industry is not going away. So this is definitely, in my opinion, job security. And if if you want a nice career in financials, I know that Primerica is probably the way to go. So that's wonderful. We'll definitely point them in the direction of those videos so
Okay.
that they can listen to it
Yeah, I
as
can
well.
send that. I can email those up to you.
Yep.
It just has a little, it's very simple. It just has a little caption about what they are, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then it gives you the address of it, and then they can watch it at their convenience, correct?
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thanks, David. Thanks, Brian, for hanging in there with us. This
Thank
was
you.
a great session. I look forward to working with you guys more. And that's pretty much it. I'm Joanne Leasure with Day One Accounting and Financial Services, as well as Grant Cardone's licensee. And you guys have a great day.
Okay,
Making
thank you.
thanks.
Appreciate it. That's great.
See you guys.